So good evening, everybody. I'm Dr. Bonnie Bragdon. This is our quarterly town hall, and we're the Independent Veterinary Practitioners Association. I'm serving currently as the president. And so what we're trying to do is get back in the habit of holding our quarterly town hall meetings. And really the purpose of that meeting is just to come together, have a conversation, update the membership on what we're doing, as well as share learnings. We are going to record this, and so this will be posted for our membership to listen to at a later date, and just wanting to let everybody know that. So first on our list is we'd like to introduce Dr. Sharon French. She is here this evening. Just as a reminder about IVPA, we were incorporated back in 2018. We have around 500 members. And really our primary goal is to promote the value of practice ownership, both to veterinarians as well as to pet owners. And really want everybody to have a choice in where they work, where they get care for their animals, and really keep hospital ownership a sustainable lifestyle. I actually like to think of it as a lifestyle. I think too many times we have taught veterinarians that if you're going to be a practice owner, you really have to like hit it out of the park, build a huge practice, make tons of money, which is fine. Everybody wants to make lots of money, but ownership can also be a lifestyle choice where you get to manage your medicine and your lifestyle and your family and your work and keep it all integrated. So my understanding is integration is the new word. We want to keep family and work and all of that integrated, not just balanced. So again, this evening, what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk quite a bit with Dr. Sharon French. I'm excited to have you all hear all the exciting things she's been doing. I got to talk with her at Western Veterinary Conference. We'll touch lightly on corporate consolidation. It's actually really hard to keep up with these days, but we'll share some highlights. We are holding our elections, so nominations officially closed today. If you have an interest in nominating somebody, you might still have an hour or two to submit a nomination, but officially I think our nominations are closed. But I would ask you to vote. So when you see that form come out for you to vote, that'll come through as a DocuSign. And we do ask you as a member to vote. And we'll update you about a couple other things that we have going on. So we have Dr. Sharon French here this evening. And so Dr. French, I really want to just spend some time learning more about you and what you're doing. And so just tell me about what you've been up to, who you are, and what you do.
Well, I'm currently trying to integrate my life with family and practice, and have learned that lesson late, but because I've been practicing close to 40 years now. It's a kind of a scary number when I say it out loud. But I'm currently a winter Texan. I've learned that I have been taking some time with my husband and seeing more of my grandchildren, and so yeah, integration. That's what I'm trying to do right now. But
yeah, so you are trained as a dentist, right? As a veterinary dentist, and you've also worked in an ER. And so where do you spend a lot of your time in practice? What do you?
Well, I guess they're combined because I've been since 2001. I've been basically the head of the veterinary dental practice within the veterinary emergency clinic in Toronto. It's a emergency clinic and referral center. It's independently owned. Been around for a very, very, very long time, but in 2001 it became 24 hours, 7 days a week, and there were 3 people. I was doing dentistry. We had an internist and a surgeon. So it was kind of and it's grown. So now there's a huge number of specialties. So I spend most of my time there. I've taken a little bit of time off the winter, but we, get to do all sorts of crazy trauma cases. And, I have a very, very gratifying job. I mean, it's hard. Veterinary medicine is kind of hard right now, but it is a joy really to do what I do. I'm a lucky person. So that's really where I spend most of my time.
So when I got to talk to you at Western States, you were there exhibiting. And so one of the things I get very excited about is I really like to support and showcase veterinarians who not only practice and own a practice, which in and of itself is being an entrepreneur, but also veterinarians who are starting businesses and services to help other independent practices. So help me understand, I think your company is called Vet Availability. What is it that Availability does?
It's designed to be a real-time database of clinics availability. I started it because when we were in the pandemic, it was so hard to service everybody. Um, I couldn't handle seeing the stress for receptionists, for technicians, for doctors everywhere. And that hasn't, it's improved because we're not in lockdown, but there really aren't enough of us, and people do need to have time, really integration, work-life balance. It's really important. And it's hard, especially in a 24-hour critical care facility, it takes a lot of people to run an organization like that, no matter how big you are. So I thought, well, there, basically had to be a better way of helping owners get care in a timely fashion, because sometimes it takes 4 phone calls and God knows how many hours of driving around or just seeing who will be able to take somebody in an emergency. But even in primary care, because sometimes we don't have staff and we can't staff, so we got to close down temporarily, or we can't take new patients. And so it's an attempt to make the world a little bit of a better place in terms of reducing phone calls and stress, and allowing primary care veterinarians a more efficient way to find overnight care for their patients rather than spending hours on the phone, and care for owners. So it was a stupidly simple idea, but
Oh, well, and I know stupidly simple ideas can actually turn into very complex operations.
oh God. well, we'll see. We'll see. But it's my attempt, because I thought it was a simple thing that would ask clinics to, and within a geographic area, to work together. We used to use Google Docs in terms of, helping helping figure out who was restricted, who wasn't, who could take patients, but that's not public facing. This is helping the public and helping each other. So I'm asking, for everybody to be a little kumbaya and come together, but I think for the greater good. So that's what it's pretty
Yeah.
much about.
So I don't practice now, and I remember very specifically a couple of years ago, it was like 8 o'clock on a Saturday night, and my one dog attacked my other dog, and she needed intensive care and she needed surgery. And all I could think, as I was calling UGA, right? So that's about a 2 or 3 hour drive away. I live in South Carolina. So I called University of Georgia. I called the emergency clinic in Augusta. I called the emergency clinic, which is an hour away, and then I called the emergency clinic in Columbia, and then I called 2 emergency clinics, and I actually took her to one emergency clinic. She was there overnight, and then I had to search for a surgeon after all of that. And there were just some key things that were important to me. I wanted an independent practice. I'm very committed to independent practices. That's where I want to spend my money. So first and foremost, I wanted to find a practice that I knew if I needed to, I could actually talk to the owner of that practice. Second, if I wanted to know that the surgeon had experience. It was actually my dog that attacked my boyfriend's dog. And so obviously I wanted to make sure we did had the most experienced person.
Yeah.
And all I could think of when I was doing that was, there's no way if I were a client, I would even know where to start. All I would do is I would go online, I would search, and I would be lucky, to know where to go. And I'd spend, however long hours probably calling and trying to find my way around. And so Dr. French, so the intention is that a client, well, in advance, that practices in the area sign up. So tell me about what that looks like for the practice to sign up.
Well, we have 4 categories. So, ER specialty, urgent care, primary care, and palliative end of life care. And exotics is just coming on because my experience at Western was getting an earful about how I didn't have exotics on that. How could I have missed that? So I listened, and because I want it to be right. So we have exotics coming on, but so clients can just click on and search for anything. But for clinics signing up, there's just a tab at the bottom of the page, and it's pretty much plug and play. It's free for at least the first year. I didn't want to charge clients because people are so upregulated about the cost of veterinary medicine. And for clinics, when and if we have to charge, it'll be in Canadian dollars, which makes all the US folks happy, but um, I'm trying to keep it to less than one patient visit a year. And it's a graduated scale because ER services will obviously have more traffic, and you get charged by Google for more things for that. And so, yeah, but if it's not about making big money off it. It's designed to try and sustain itself so I can retire at some point. Um, but it's pretty easy. When the clinic signs up, you have your own clinic dashboard. You fill out all the information about your clinic, so that shows. So if you can modify hours and waiting time if you're ER, your status for critical care if you're ER, and it shows it's a click of the mouse to change that status, and it reflects in real time in the map. And the map is basically color-coded icons of the member clinics. So it helps a little bit of SEO because each clinic page within the site gets to there's a URL to the clinic page itself. So it helps a little bit. And basically I'm pretty pragmatic creature. So, if you want the business, it'll help because you stay green. And if you don't want the business for a while, it'll help because then you'll be red or orange, which is restricted.
I'm thinking if we just go to your website and just take a look, you can kind of help us. We can look at it in real time. So the clinic signs up. So primary practices sign up, emergency clinics sign up, urgent care, everybody kind of signs up. And then the client will, and I'll go over it. I'll kind of look at this together in a second, but then the client looks for the practice. Now, how much time and energy and work does it take for the practice to update their status? Like, what's your recommendation? Do they update it on a weekly or daily?
The ERs will have sometimes in ER, I've lived this for 20 years or so, you have to update it, moment by moment. Sometimes you get a flood of people and then all of a sudden you have no IV pumps or not enough staff. So then you go restricted. Well, you tell the receptionist that, and usually the receptionists then are deflecting people on the phone. Well, if you have the dashboard up on one computer at the front, you just click it to where you're at. You just change it with a click of the mouse and then that shows in real time. And then you can change it again when you need to. Now, primary care won't need to change it that often unless they have a staffing issue or they're at capacity and they can't take new patients. So their status update won't be that frequently. If an ER isn't updating their status for quite a while, then I get a warning email, and then I can always reach out and go, are you having trouble? I'm pretty accessible. So we want it to be, and if anybody has any thoughts about what would be easier or different or better, I'm all ears. I want it to be right.
Okay, so I'm going to wait for the text to come through. So then,
verification, then it activates the account, and then the next screens will be, hours, which is, you could just click the buttons. Monday, you're open from this to this, or, so you can change the hours too if you need to at any time.
okay.
Use the services that your clinic offers, and just the doctors, you have to have at least one doctor in there, but the doctors who work at the practice and the kinds of things that you do, photos, can be uploaded, and in your special instructions you can identify yourself as an independent practice, because
Nice.
I also am a fan of independent practice. I work in one. So whatever you want to put in that special instructions box, and then you become live. Your status is open or closed, or accepting or not accepting new patients for a primary care, and then you're live. and then people will find you on the map.
Perfect. So if we go here, we can see the map.
Yes, if you wanted to search for, there's quite a few in Toronto already. So we're trying to do our, oh, that's the How Urgent Is My Problem page. We did that because clients sometimes don't understand how serious a problem is. And just in terms of helping out, how tough receptionists have to, answer these questions. And sometimes they have to run to the back and ask, what do I do with this patient's doing this? That's just a guide that some critical care folks help me and ER folks help me generate. And it can be, I was telling folks that I thought, you join up, it can be printed out as a PDF and you can laminate it just so it's a guide if you agreed with it or you want to alter it. But it's just as a guide to try and help people understand how serious a symptom may or may not be. So that's just a little extra help for clients because they sometimes miss things that are important.
Yes, yes. I mean, I love the scooting bottom, how that can all of a sudden become an emergency for a client when, of course, it's not really an emergency. All right. So then
Feels like an emergency.
it feels like an emergency and it's really uncomfortable, probably more for the client. So then for us to see the map as a client, then
Yeah, so if you select which category you want. Exotics aren't quite up there. They're green when they're going. So if you want to, you click primary care. And if you want to see several, you could, you go down a little, scroll down a little bit. Yep. And you can then put in, because people travel with their pets, so we wanted to make it, US and Canada. So you could put in, Toronto's got quite a few, so you
okay,
could put in, I'll give you a postal code to put in if you want.
okay.
M as in Mary, 4, W as in William, space, 3 as in 3, C as in Charlie, 7. And then, you can change the radius to miles or kilometers, whatever you like, and then you can just search.
Ah, wonderful.
You go. So then if you click on an icon, then you can go to that clinic's page. That's how, yep. So click on that. And then you go down and Canary District stuff is there.
Oh, wonderful.
And then you can, if there's other things that you wanted to add, and it's a little bit different for the ERs and especially, and of course, palliative doesn't do all those things. So, it's the page would be a little bit different for those who do palliative care.
And so the green means that the clinic is accepting patients.
Yeah. So if it's orange, then it means that there's something different and they would go and look, because it might be, well, we're just closed on the weekend. So ER would be, red, orange, green are their colors just for basically what they're doing.
Wonderful. Very amazing. Very, very cool.
Well, I I think it's simple, but I just thought maybe it might help.
Absolutely. So
We're
admitted.
we try and teach our vet students when they come to us because there's not a dentist at OVC where I graduated. We're trying to talk to them about what their world is going to be like, and when they graduate, and how they ought to value their staff because times are tougher um, than when I first graduated all those years ago. But it's just in my kind of veterinary dental world, we try and implement things that just might make it easier on people in terms of the number of phone calls and emotional burden too, that we suffer through with veterinary medicine.
Yeah, and just the concept of decision fatigue, like it doesn't matter if it's us or a receptionist, but making that decision over and over and over again. You get 5 calls in a row and you have to talk to somebody else in the clinic to make that decision. But if you've got this nice, neat little chart that helps really just keep things organized, easy to give an answer, and you're not having to, rethink the same question and the same problem over
Well,
and over again.
it came about that chart because one of my kids who doing me a big favor, just filling in at reception because we were short. And she had somebody, and she's a smart kid. She's got a veterinarian for a mother. She's lived in veterinary medicine for a while. And, she had these people phone and they said they had their Frenchie spayed a week ago and they were, you know, she hadn't eaten for a few days and then she was kind of breathing real funny. And, Rebecca, my kid, she's going, this could be very serious because she's thinking aspiration pneumonia or some such thing. And she said, we're restricted, but we're closest. So, come, but get in the car right now. I really think it's very important that you come. And the woman in the background was going, well, I have to change my clothes. And then I guess we'll have to go to the bank. And she's going, no,
Oh my God.
just please come. And it was 2 hours by the time they ended up. They thought the dog was asleep in the back of the car. And he was dead. And, my kid was she's not a veterinarian. But she was so traumatized by that. She said, Mom, people don't get it. And you gotta do something to make it, people understand that it's, you gotta educate the public. And
Wow.
so it came because of, that experience. And I thought, oh, reception have to deal with that a lot. And, maybe it's why the people burn out in reception as well as, techs and animal care attendants and vets. So even though things are better, we're not really in terrible times that we had in COVID. They're just really, they can't make enough veterinarians yet. And, I am glad to say that they're rewriting the Veterinarians Act in Ontario, and they are going to permit technicians to do more, which I've been harping on for years because we have some very brilliant technicians that, should be allowed to, function as nurse practitioners in the human side. Anyway.
Well, so I'll open it up for discussion. We've been talking at everybody, and I just want to give everyone on the call a chance to ask questions. We're a small group, so certainly feel free to ask any questions you have. So, Dr. French, so you clearly said that you are up and running in Canada and you're up and running in the United States as well?
Just very, very baby
Okay.
level starting out. My job is just to sort of get the word out, and I'm trying to do that as best as I can at this moment.
Nice. So really a clinic has a couple of benefits they get from working through this app. One, we hope to reduce the amount of traffic, or maybe moderate and move traffic more appropriately in a more efficient way to reduce the strain and stress on our team. And then the other one that I always think about too is if your clients can kind of choose and kind of self-regulate where they're going, they're less stressed. So hopefully when they get to your practice, they're not so grumpy and you can get stuff done with less stress. And then finally, it's actually a good way to promote your clinic in the community, right? So I'm assuming that there's some efforts on your part to promote this to the public. So it's almost like getting free advertising at the same time that you're getting a service.
Yeah, and we're starting the public portion of it now just through social media. I've got getting some help from some smart people to direct me in the right way to do that. But I wanted to get veterinarians alerted first and on to some degree first because I don't want, and I didn't want anybody to go, oh, if our clinic's not on there, we're gonna look bad. But so it's like trying to do everything all at once. But yes.
Hey, Dr. French, I got a question, Bonnie, when there's an opening. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
But Arnie Goldman, I'm from Connecticut. I was just looking at the website while we were all talking, and just curiosity, the prices for clinics to enroll. I noticed that it's actually cheaper for a primary care clinic that's corporate, which is defined as over 100 clinics, is to join. Is that $100 per clinic? So it would cost them like $10,000 if they had, you know what I'm saying? Whereas a single entity primary care is 150. So I was just wondering how that got decided. Not to put you on the
Well,
spot.
no, and it's all in flux because it's free right now. But the thought was if we could encourage the corporates to come on because they don't have free choice. A lot of corporation clinics, everybody sees it as a good idea. A lot of the corporate entities they don't have permission, right? So they can't do anything. So I was trying to make it better for them by giving them a bit of a discount.
Oh, I see. You know, my
So
experience with corporate clinics is that as soon as they see something, they appropriate it and recreate it for their own purposes. And I just worry that they'll work around you somehow to,
they might, but here's the thing, Arnie, I'm Switzerland. So
okay.
I'm completely neutral. And if one corporation does one thing, nobody else is going to want to play, right? Because it's
Maybe
theirs.
so, yeah.
Like I learned that because I'm an old girl, but I'm pretty naive. And talking to people at Zoetis and people in industry, they talk to me about industry wars. And if one company's doing something, then everybody else is like, I'm not doing that because that's owned by corporation X. And so if I remain independent and I'm not owned by anybody, this is my own give back, my own baby,
Yeah.
then it's public facing. And then I'm hoping that because I am Switzerland, that the more clinics that go on, the better it is for everybody, or at least if we have a portion of clinics on,
Hmm.
it's better for the public and helps everybody, I think. But the pricing, the web people, they tried to figure out in terms of Google traffic and what I would be billed as it grows.
Yeah, I figured that played a role. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and my personal thought is like, nobody's getting charged anything until, we have enough clinics to make it run. So that part is still, somewhat open. I think maybe we were a bit premature putting pricing on, but it was ready to go. And so we went live.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, so I think this service is great. I think it's going to offer a good opportunity. Um, you know, the, there are so many ways that corporations do, kind of appropriate things for themselves, and kind of block independence. And so this could be a good way to make sure that.
well, hey, Bonnie, I'm open to supporting independence in any way, and we can talk about that because I'm a fan and, I believe in free spirit and free choice. And yeah, so.
Yeah, and as independent practices come together, these are the kinds of things that we need to support because we don't have the tools individually. And as Dr. Goldman alluded to, some of these corporations can kind of build out their own network. They can build out their own app. And just like Chewy has built some, consulting apps as well as Walmart. I was going to say Walgreens. I meant to say Walmart. So they're all rushing to offer these, kind of free stepwise consultative services. And so we do need to be supporting other independent services that work with us in order to make sure that we have a equal seat at the table.
I hear you. And
It's a shifting landscape, right? It's really shifting. So any more questions for Dr. French? Anything else that we Well, Dr. French, thank you. You're welcome to stay on. I'm just going to do a quick update on kind of what's going on in the veterinary consolidation space. And really, the goal of these conversations is to have a discussion. And we want to do these at least quarterly. And so anybody's welcome to open up any kind of topic at all. But just want to kind of keep connections with everybody and have an understanding of what's going on in our own profession. I think sometimes we get so busy with what we're trying to accomplish on a day-to-day basis, it can really be hard to see what's going on in our own profession. So trying to kind of keep track of all that's actually pretty overwhelming. I'm going to start here at the same slide I started at my last town hall meeting. Is we do know that corporatization has obviously permeated the whole entire world. Europe is probably more highly consolidated than the United States. Actually, I read recently that there are a few corporate clinics in England that are being forced to divest, similar to here in the United States, but that it might be coming even a greater issue where they have higher consolidation. So even in Sweden, it's even a greater level of consolidation. And I think once we get highly consolidated, that leads to all kinds of issues within the profession. So what's going on here in the United States? Really, this is from Ryan Leach, who a little bit of investigation. What it seems is that he is highly engaged in the consolidation market and plays a role in supporting those who consolidate. And there really has been a downturn. So there are fewer practices being bought by consolidators and being rolled up into larger practices. So if you own a practice, right, that's a double-edged sword of good and bad. So in IDEX data, which of course IDEX has lots and lots of data, the acquisition of independent practices declined by 68% from 1,550 in 2021 to only 500 in 2023. Kind of Ryan says that the market for practice purchases or consolidation is stagnating. And really what that's due to for any of those, for those of us who follow interest rates and such, interest rates went up. The amount of capital that investors had access to got smaller. They became more conservative as they didn't want to be spending their cash growth, but conserving it for any problems that might come up. The FTC has delayed some of NVA's acquisitions, and NVA did abandon or hold off on their IPO efforts. And so right now we're in a bit of a lull where consolidation is slowing. So fewer practices are being bought by these large corporations. So what I really kind of, and I have a good friend who shall remain nameless, but a very good friend I bumped into at VMX, and he actually helped me start and create the IVPA, and he dropped off the board a couple of months ago, and we bumped into each other, and he said, I just have to tell you that I now have enough money to keep my family secure and safe for a very long time, and I don't need to worry about money anymore. So as we talk about these conversations, it's a very double-edged sword, right? Because as veterinarians, we should be allowed to prosper and make money as off the very hard work that we put into our endeavors. But for some of us, it's still a little sad to see how the profession is becoming more and more owned by large corporations. So as a owner of a veterinary practice, it's really, really important that you start planning for your exit strategy fairly early in practice. So what that means is that I apologize, my TV just decided to turn on. So what that means, right? If you own a practice, there was the big bubble up until about the pandemic where practices were able to sell for as much as 18 times EBITDA. That, of course, has come down to lower levels. So those practices that are really seeking to sell to corporations, just understand that those numbers have come down. If you really want to sell to an independent veterinarian, then making those plans early and starting to recruit early is an important part of that. So interestingly, Ryan talks about things to prepare for your clinic and how you can really make sure that you're preparing your business. And some of those things look at, the obvious things like managing your cost of goods sold, making sure you have good talent in place, anything that would be good just as much to sell to an independent veterinarian as well as to a consolidator. So let me pause there for a minute and ask you, is there too much background noise from my end? Do I need to fix that? No.
Nope.
Okay, good. It's only bothering me. Okay. So this was a really, really interesting blog I came across not too long ago. And really this idea that the FTC is coming out and starting to recognize that consolidation is affecting the market. And that this, I really even think it's actually causing issues with practitioner well-being. I've talked to a number of veterinarians who actually have said they're embarrassed and stressed to share an estimate with a client because they feel like the cost is too high. And so the Financial Times reported that the price of medications for pets rose by 78% after a clinic was acquired by a private equity firm or a group of clinics owned by private equity, and that there's just increasing pressure on associates to deliver more in less time. So I don't know if there's anybody on the call that wants to speak to that, if anybody has experience with this idea that as practitioners, that when we work for corporates, we're now expected to produce more in a smaller amount of time.
Well, I'm not, as you know, I don't work for corporate, but I can tell you that yes, they are the upsell that they're supposed to engage in is very frustrating for clients and veterinarians alike. They feel terrible, but that's true. And I was involved in the purebred dog world for helping them for a while, and they were all outraged about how when their clinic became corporate, and so yeah, upsell is a real thing. I hear that from clients too. That
Well,
clinic now it's wow.
Hey, Bonnie. Hi, I'm Kelly. First time on a call with IVPA. I'm a new member, and I am providing coaching, consulting businesses with a goal of helping build more independent practice owners personally. But so my most recent employment I was with Banfield Pet Hospital for 11 years. So I can just tell you, I mean, from a business perspective, the goal of any business, is going to be to drive top line, right, and reduce expenses. And so, at scale, all the corporations are really going to drive this. I mean, they have to meet, certain goals to be profitable, to hit bonuses. There's all kinds of behaviors that are behind it. I think, I can't speak to upselling specifically. I think that's going to be very business model by business model. But, corporations are going to be very numerically driven because they have, somebody that is expecting them to make their financials. So yes, it's true. And I don't know if you saw that in the UK, so the UK's version of the FTC is now doing an investigation on the veterinary segment as a whole. And, what is driving behaviors. And there's a kind of bit of a public outcry on pricing in veterinary medicine that I think will be really interesting to follow and see what comes of that, because I'm sure, that is, on the heels of the pandemic, and just the intense competition for talent, has driven up salaries. And on top of that, getting your supplies has cost a lot more. So it's, and that we're seeing that reflected in pricing and a decrease for demand and services. Anyway, I think it's going to be interesting to kind of see the flow of this and see, what shakes out on it. I don't know that we need more government regulation in our industry because we don't have that much, which is great, aside from safety for the most part. And I know Arnie can speak to that as well. So anyway, that's my 2 cents in perspective.
I'll just add that, there's an opportunity for IVPA and others who share our values here in that, you know, the individual veterinarian is no longer at the center of their profession in many cases. And there's an opportunity to re-educate the upcoming generations, if not the current generations, about that. They're the ones that went to veterinary school. They own that degree. It doesn't belong to any of the corporations. And if these young veterinarians come to realize that their professional autonomy and satisfaction in their lives, both personal and professional, are keyed to their own control of their daily work lives, that's going to make a big change. I can potentially foresee a lot of these corporations, they'll become the ones who have a hard time hiring, and there'll be a movement back towards veterinarian-centered private practice. I mean, somebody just said, I think you, Kelly, the clients, or maybe you, Sharon, the clients don't prefer to go somewhere where they never see the same person and who, after a little while, that person ends up moving on. And that's a standard thing, certainly around me, where my corporate local competitors, a year and a half goes by and those veterinarians have moved on. And that's not the same thing as, me being in the same place 25 years and now seeing the grandchildren of the original clients. There's still a place for that. And the public, given a choice, they want that. Maybe not in the exact same way with the iPhone generation, but they still want a relationship. And that's something unique that the degree holder has. And these corporations, they provide big bonuses, salaries, and a lot of flexibility initially. But as time goes on, you start to see that you've given up your freedom, your professional freedom, and your professional autonomy. And I hope that the upcoming generations will come to appreciate that. And I think that this organization is positioned to do some education in that regard. And that would be what that would serve us very well as a group,
Yeah, and I love this idea, Arnie, when you talk about veterinarians own their degree. They own their degree. They can use it in any way they see fit. This idea of having a gig economy, while it's not, necessarily easy to snap your fingers and open a practice, but being in a gig economy means that you can structure your practice any way you want. And I think we miss that sometimes. I think, in the 80s and the 90s when I started in veterinary medicine, we were so focused on the idea that veterinarians weren't charging enough that, maybe we kind of overshot that idea. And it's not that we shouldn't be charging appropriately, but we should charge and deliver medicine in a way that's satisfying for us. And so if that means you're building a practice that just takes care of you and your family, and it's not a huge practice that you're going to turn around and sell for millions, that's definitely still a successful career and still a successful business.
We're having an interesting phenomenon in Ontario, and we're seeing very good veterinarians who sold weren't quite ready to not work anymore after their required time, like they used it as an exit strategy, hated it. And many of them have rebuilt new practices and are independent practices now. Many people, because they like to let me know that they're going to be referring again from their new private practice. So it's kind of a circular thing, and we do see, staff, as you suggest, Arnie, they see, veterinarians. It's almost like a, musical chairs kind of thing where veterinarians are not so happy and then try the next place and then try the next place and try the next place. And
if
so
the younger colleagues fully understood that agreeing to be a serf is not as satisfying as being the lord of the manor in the future, they might see it a little differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think we're at a crossroads where we really have a lot of work and a lot of opportunity to really change the course of our profession. As we're bringing on more vet schools, we have an opportunity to help those folks understand they have choice. And I think that will really could steer the profession and make it more balanced. I don't think that corporate practices are going to go away anytime soon. I don't think that's possible anymore. But at least if new grads have an understanding and a choice, I think that's important.
Do you have the ability to lecture or have independent practitioners lecture at vet schools? Because I think
We do. I wanted to, one thing that this Ryan gentleman says is that transparency will be key to mending the tenuous relationships with independent practices. Not really sure why we would want to have, I guess because we should continue to sell, or I don't really know where that comes from, but I just thought that was an amusing statement. So a little bit about what we're doing, just to kind of remind everybody. I always do like to pick on Mars. They're my favorite group to pick on. These are all the brands that they own. So not only do they own Mars, oh, and Heska's in here now. They bought Heska, Mars, all of these veterinary healthcare brands. But if you also look at all of their food brands, I actually had a sales rep of theirs tell me that Mars makes more money on food than they do on veterinary medicine. But as you can see that and actually they make more money on animals than they do chocolate. That I totally believe.
Yeah, say that's not true. Yeah, their portfolio is 60% pet care.
Yeah. Yeah. So they make more money on animals than chocolate these days. So Mars bought Heska for $1.3 billion. And so now you really have, I am putting a plug out there. You really only have one company that's that's independently owned to provide diagnostic equipment. So Heska is no longer independent. Antech is owned by Mars. Heska is owned by Mars. IDEX is pretty large. Zoetis is, those are some of your few options when it comes to diagnostic instruments. I always love to rag on the Mars family. I once read that Pam, I think her name's Pam Mars, made a statement that veterinarians should just get used to the fact that the Mars family is here to stay in our profession. I hope she was directing that at me. But you can see here that the Mars family is one of the wealthiest families in the world, and that is being served by veterinarians and the work they do. So we're going to skip through all of this, but the idea is wanted to just touch on some of the things we're doing. So IVPA does have a student program. We actually have a student at Michigan State and we have a student at Illinois or Iowa. I'm so sorry. Probably gonna get fired from being president. But we want to scale this program. And so veterinarians who actually would like to support a program in their school, we're looking for a donation of funds. It's about $5,000 per year to manage the program. We're also looking for mentors. So if somebody wants to start a program in their school, we can help administer that and help you create that program. We've actually got a lot of materials, and it's just a matter of getting you in the door. And so we're scaling that program. That's something we really believe in. And we do have elections coming up, as I said. So when you see that come through your mailbox, if you'd be sure to vote, we would appreciate that. And then we're also holding an ownership boot camp, Kelly. So you and I should talk offline at a small regional conference in Cherokee, North Carolina next month. I'm holding a couple of days of workshops just to help veterinarians understand how to get in to become an owner. So helping them to accelerate their path and understanding what production is and how to create a pro forma P&L and do all those things that the bank requires. We have Hogan on the call here tonight. And so he and I have talked a lot about personal finance for veterinarians, and I love all the things that he does. So we have a lot of support for our members. And so there's a lot to get done and a lot that we're doing. And I'll stop there and see if you have any other questions. So with that, I know we're at time, and I really appreciate everybody participating this evening. Well, we hope to have these meetings quarterly, and really, again, the goal is conversation and helping everybody understand where we are at with consolidation and how IVPA can help help level the playing field. And with
Brilliant.
that, I'll say goodnight to everybody. Thank you for joining.